I like to use these smaller bands. I don't really want it much higher than the actual contact point where it's going to be. It's easier for me to see it. I would get the larger bands in there and then I'd build the tooth up way too high and it builds up the contact points or messes it up so it's always hitting high. So this just allows me to get a better marginal adaptation to that spot. I guess the classic form of doing the back-to-backs, like you guys were mentioning, is just doing the two bands. Place them in there. I'm going to cheat a little bit and look at it. So then I like to just wrap it kind of around the areas. So it kind of hugs that same surface there. I want to see how it adapts along the margins there everywhere. And then also here. I even look at this before I get the rings on to make sure that that's pretty an accurate band selection, wedge selection, all that stuff to make sure it's pretty good.
What would be some of the things that might make you say that you need to back up a step?
If I can't get a nice flush margin between the actual band and the tooth, then I'll switch for whatever it may be. Sometimes this wedge is just too small. Well, these wedges are nice because they actually help push out. This kind of does what a lot of the Teflon ones done, but if you have just the classic wood ones, wrapping it in Teflon is good. This is nice too because it actually will help control some of the fluid that might be popping up. That would be a situation where I'm changing the bands or wedges is if I just have too much moisture popping through.
Okay.
Place it through, and that just hugs it a little bit more, gets a tighter contact between the two. And so for those back-to-backs, this is nice just because it does hug it really well on the bottom, but you can see here, there's a decent amount of space between it. That's probably about 2 millimeters that are open, 1.5 millimeters. I'm not totally worried about it now. Maybe I might push it out a touch. So for this one, we're gonna go with this molar. I like this curvature right here, so that's kind of how I'm judging that space. I would just basically prime and bond everywhere on both sides. And then I would get a little ribbon of Flowable and just drop it in there, so on all those margins there. And then work on this one. I'm giving it enough time to kind of set up and mature and polymerize. So then I'll go and do this side as well here. And at this point, the walls do get kind of pushed out and kind of pre-shape it if I need to a little bit to kind of gauge where that would be.
So you'd actually be placing Flowable in both of the boxes.
I go back and forth, yeah.
Back and forth, okay.
That's part of that biomimetic technique, is that I actually want to give each layer, or at least the foundation, like 2 millimeters worth of the composite to actually polymerize and mature. By working here, I'm allowing this one to set up and mature, because especially it's hard to bond to this base of it down here. It can be potentially weak area, and it takes a lot of stress down here. So yeah, I bond this one, set it, and then go back and bond this one over here and set this one. When I build it up, I'm only trying to get this first layer of composite to be about 1 millimeter or so off of that base margin. And so I'm having built up any really walls yet. This is just that foundation of that.
So you're using a microbrush there to
adapt it a little bit.
Okay.
And I like the microbrush because it gives a little better, smoother finish. You can kind of control it more. And if I need it, then I'll take just a flat plastic instrument and kind of push it up the wall just a touch. So this area that we just built up is only about 1 millimeter high. So that's my foundation for that one. So if I'm doing back-to-backs like that, I just want that one just to be a touch higher. So then I would cure this one and then jump over to the other side. And I'm using a super small piece. We call these delibits in the biomimetic world. It's a small millimeter. This might even be big for where it's at. I have primer and bond down here that will be so flowable if I need it. So once again, I'm just worried about this base formation essentially. So that's just the emergence profile coming up on it. So I'll cure this one, and this one's been set up for like 5 minutes or so. We call that the hierarchy of bondability, to kind of let it set it and mature. And then so this one, if this is about the height that it is, I'd just get this to about another 1 millimeter or 2 in this area. Bond this one, and that's your basically outlined wall. That's your class 1. And then I would cure this one, so this is well set up. Then I would take the other piece of composite, I would build this one up, and then it's really at this point when I would start to adapt that contact point between the two teeth, where basically the walls are set up. We can come back and then take this guy back out, and so for like this, just push it down back into that wall. The premolar is a little bit too short. I can see it, especially because we cure this one a little too fast. If I need to correct it, I'll take a little bit of Flowable and just drop it down in there. And then take the composite back, depends on the space.
Into the uncured flowable.
And use this to push the flowable back down into that space.
Okay, got it.
That's if there's a little void, wherever it may be in the area. We call it the snowplow technique. It's not typically for the walls like this. I mean, yeah, it's a common term everywhere, but it helps just to correct any type of defect that might be. So then I take like this instrument and kind of burnish up the walls a little bit so I can get that area there where I want it. There, we can even check to see if you wanted to. Sometimes I do this to actually take the band off, especially with access and working. If I have a lot that I'm working on, those rings just kind of get in the way. If I have the walls, you don't really need it. It's like what we were saying before. This is a class 1.
You fulfilled the purpose of the ring.
Yeah, and then just take it off.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people doing that now, where they'll build those walls up and then get the ring out of there so that they can see, particularly if they like to build a lot of anatomy into that top layer.
And when I took this band out, it was dragging pretty well, so there I would know that I would have a nice tight contact point. We can't look at it this angle with the patients, but you can see a little bit. It should be good right there. It's nice. It'll be nice and tight. And here we have a little bit of flash on the side. I actually like to get a 12 blade and then just scrape that off a little bit too, and just kind of correct it as we need. There are times when I do it just the one side versus the other. I'll just freehand this spot right here that I need. If this was like a smaller, like a slot prep type thing, I might just wedge it even on the bottom so it gets the tissue out of the way, or the dam, whatever we're talking about in that area, and then just form it with this and then do the large one afterwards.
Freehanding the first one on a really, really small one, and then using the ring band wedge to get the contact from the larger one.
Right. I like to just do it in steps, in like a sequence. Work on the base of it first so it has a profile coming up, and then I can kind of adapt to whatever way I need to. If that bigger one is going to be more complicated, to give it more of the time if we need it.